Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode 183 of the Thoughtium Navigating Now Virtual Roundtable Series. I'm Anthony Ewing, CEO and partner here at Thoughtium, and I am with Grift Krenbrink, my colleague. Grift, say hello.
Hey, good to see you. Good to be here with everyone. Excited for today's focus area, which I'll let you introduce, but great to be here.
This is one of our favorite episodes out of the year. This is where we really pause and take a look at some of the top trends that are impacting us as learning leaders, as coaches, as HR professionals. And we use this 2024 LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report. This is a report that is produced every year by our friends at LinkedIn. It is the one report out of the year that I physically print out because I like to get my hands on it. We like to mark it up. And we really, really like to glean insights from this that both inform our work and even confirm some of the decisions that we're making here at Thoughtium. And we are excited to share some of the top L&D trends for 2024. Are you ready, Grift?
I am very, very ready, very stoked. Let's get into this, have some fun.
Yes. So one of the first things that we look at in the LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report is essentially where is the lens pointed at with L&D in the industry at large. And over the last couple of years, the focus for L&D has really been tying people strategy and learning to the outcomes of the organization. How do we develop programs and learning experiences that truly tie to organizational outcomes? What we learned this year, and maybe a very unique trend that is emerging this year, is that more and more organizations are seeing that helping employees develop their careers are leading to the greatest organizational outcomes. So every year, LinkedIn ranks the top 5 focus areas for L&D and HR professionals. This year, helping employees develop their careers, career development, rose to number 4 from number 9 last year. And it was probably one of the most significant moves. So Grift, talk to us a little bit about employee development. It's always been a mainstay for our practitionership as L&D pros, but why is it starting to raise the rank in terms of what we're focused on in investing in organizations?
Yeah, well, first off, it's really, really exciting to see. I mean, even as you look at those top 5 trends, there's so much interrelation between all of them. I mean, there's so much overlap. But to see the focus on career development, I think is a very, very promising add to the top 5. I think the thing that gets me most excited is, to me, it's almost like a wake up. Not that we've been asleep to this, but L&D recognizing there is this like short-term value proposition we have with employees, and then there's the long-term. And it's very easy in different seasons of our businesses to maybe be a little over-rotated in one versus the other. Yeah. So we might find ourselves doing like really quick upskilling on particular skill gaps or training, which feels like we're kind of meeting the moment's need. Yeah. But what might have happened over the last couple of years is that maybe we've lost a little bit of that focus for folks on where do you want to go in your career as you build things here with our business. I think what's also really, really fascinating about this is I don't think it's just in the career development volume itself. I think it's in a little bit of what it looks like. And so I think a lot of this is probably not just saying, hey, we're helping people develop careers through skill building, through leadership development, et cetera. I think it's also saying there are different paths you have to build a career here that aren't just some single narrow path. Yep. You might treat your, I've heard it, one of our clients called this more like creating career jungle gyms versus ladders, giving people the chance to jump around, explore new things. And again, to see it as, one of the top 5 things that L&D is focusing on is really, really exciting because I think it's really giving people the chance to see companies investing in them both in the short term and the long term.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking in a little bit about how retention and internal mobility become almost these golden metrics for well-designed and delivered development programming. I think you start to see leadership development and employee development start to rise the ranks as organizations focus more on attracting, retaining, and developing the best talent, especially in today's marketplace. We've definitely seen that with our clients wanting to invest more heavily in those programs that will both retain and engage their folks in ways that they feel like they've truly got a next and a next within the organization. And I like that analogy of the jungle gym versus the ladder. All right, so let's move on to the second trend that we really gleaned from the 2024 Workplace Learning Report from LinkedIn. It wouldn't be a discussion about trends without the conversation or the mention of AI. Now, I thought it was
Allen Iverson, right?
Yeah. AI for us OG MBA fans. But we're talking about artificial intelligence. This is, clearly a topic that is not only in the zeitgeist, but it's also at the forefront of a lot of our business planning discussions. What will the impact of AI have on our organizations, both from a data and tools perspective, but also from like a skill development perspective? In fact, the LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report said that 4 in 5 employees would like to learn more about AI. And I think even more so, folks are curious about how it might impact their role, right? Of course, there's some fear on, AI being a replacement for more tactical roles. That's a completely different discussion. And we here at Thought Team believe that emerging technologies support and supplement the employee experience. They do not replace or take over. But as it pertains to AI in learning and development, Griff, how are we starting to discuss AI with our folks, and how can we get employees closer to this concept and maybe even leverage AI as part of the learning experience?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think with any major technological revolution that's happened, honestly, in like human history, there's always going to be that initial curve where we just are scared of what it will do to every single part of the work we do, whether it's in the learning and development space, whether it's in the manufacturing space, et cetera. So I think just it's common for us to maybe face very new things with fear and thinking about them maybe in a zero-sum mindset of, is AI going to come in and eat away every other thing we know about learning experiences or L&D today as we know it, and even start to take the jobs of L&D professionals. I think you're spot on in that if we see AI more as something that can help us accelerate and enhance, and particularly take a lot of the administrative burden of creating personalized, scaled learning within organizations, I think we can see it as a way, again, for us to do what we do best, which is design, which is create really meaningful moments, in-person moments, et cetera. So I think what we're seeing more and more and talking with our clients around AI is, how do you utilize tools that maybe you still have a lot of the in-person things you do that are meant more for like disruption of mindset. Like we need people to start thinking about things differently.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that in just like an AI-backed tool, because there isn't just enough disruptive environment to maybe have you talk with people, work with others, go through challenging problem statements, go through simulated exercises. So you can see that a lot of those disruptive moments, I think, will probably still stay out of the world of AI for now. What I think AI can be very, very powerful for, and what we're talking with our clients a lot about, is how do you then create the tail of learning where it becomes personalized and allow people to explore, kind of take their own learning into their own hands. So think about things as tactical as being able to leave an amazing experience where I'm learning new skills, and I have almost like a chat bot that I'm standing up new projects or I'm getting onto new initiatives, like I can go to that chat bot and say like, hey, these are the things I remember I wanted to learn. What can I go deeper on? What courses do our organization have? So a way almost to have like a learning assistant alongside you as you're trying to reinforce and engage and continuing to build and reinforce a lot of these skills. I think another thing is that the great thing about AI is it obviously has so much compute power. You can utilize that in creating simulated experiences for people. So being able to go through rapid prototyping, being able to make decisions against, teams of people all across the world and almost have like a gamified experience. Like AI can maybe even make that experience more intuitive moving forward. So I think to me, I see it as a really, really good way to extend and expand the learning, but we're never going to lose those amazing in-person or disruptive style of experiences, because that's generally where learning will start. It won't end there, but it has to start with something that's very, very disruptive. And then we can use these tools to help people kind of carve their own learning path as they get going.
I love that. The more that we see AI come into play and have its impact on making content more readily available, it continues to feed this hypothesis or this thesis that we have, which is the content is the commodity and the experience is the differentiator. So I think the other thing that's happening as content becomes more readily available to us, more searchable, more personalized, there's this big swing now back into these truly human-centered experiences. If we can take the administrative burden off of our folks of having to even step into certain learning experiences, do a lot of like the long form reading and searching on their own, we can have them come in prepared and then truly focus the learning experiences on what matters most, which is the human application of these experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to build on that, I think there is maybe that balance you have to strike between, we want AI, we want technology like this to enhance or accelerate or augment an experience, but we do run the danger of substitution. And I think even as you think about, I think about some of the work we do, like how easy it would be to go and say, we're going to design this learning experience and we're just going to put a couple prompts into Chat GPT and our work's done for us. Right. But I think one of the things that we run the risk of is in pure substitution like that, we're going to start to lose that power of our creative muscle. And as we get more and more into these trends, what we'll talk about is like, that's what's going to be most important for us as individuals moving forward, like the human oriented skills. And so seeing it as more as like empowerment, how do we bring it along and create maybe that personalized tale with AI versus it being sort of like the substitution of how it all gets done. Where we start to like, creativity is like any other muscle, right? It has to be worked out.
Yeah. So I think the bottom line here is for at least us L&D and HR professionals, the future is bright with a world powered by or supported by new technologies such as AI. Okay, we are unpacking the top L&D and HR trends as part of the 2024 LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report. We've got about 4 or 5 of these trends that we are so thrilled to share with you all, our community. Year over year, this report takes a look at the seat that L&D has at, they call it the table or the C-suite table. And I love that they measure this objectively every year. How strategically is L&D positioned within an organization? And for the 3rd year in a row, really since the inception of the pandemic, when entire organizations were looking at talent and learning and development, saying, how do we maintain continuity? How do we retain folks who are really challenged in this time? Our seat at the table has risen. For the past 3 years, it's gone up. And this year, over 60% of L&D professionals feel that they have a seat at the strategic table. Now, this begs the question, what are we talking about at the table, right? It's kind of like...
We're there at dinner. Did we bring a side dish?
Exactly. Like sometimes you get what you ask for. And here we are, having more and more strategic discussions about the role that L&D has, the culture that we're building within our organizations, and ultimately the impact of the investment that we're making in learning and development. So Griff, let's talk a little bit about, like, now that we've got this incredible seat at the table, what types of conversations should we be having with leaders within our organizations?
Yeah. Well, first off, I just want to say, like, this is a lot of fun talking about this stuff.
I love it.
What a great industry that we get to find ourselves privileged to work in on a day-to-day basis. I also want to hear your reaction to this same question, because I think you'll have a lot of really interesting insights as well. Appreciating that sort of caustic laugh. I wonder where you're going with it.
I just know something divergent is coming.
Well, I think so. I've said this a lot of times to our clients, and I probably have said it on this network a couple of times as well through a couple of different episodes. I think a lot of times what we've done in the learning or the L&D space in the past is we've done a really good job of focusing on what you might call leading indicators. Mm-hmm. So like things like satisfaction, like employee satisfaction, whether it be broad employee satisfaction or whether it be satisfaction with the training or with an experience. We've done a good job of maybe seeing like the immediate proof points. And so therefore we've generally brought those as like end results to our business partners. And I think what, if anything, has become more and more clear is that we need to see those not as outputs, but as leading indicators to business style metrics that are going to be very, very important in driving the future success of your organization. Like what we truly believe is that people drive business. Right. Yeah. That's just a fundamental belief we have. I'm sure a lot of folks in our audience would believe that as well. So you need to start thinking about the metrics around your people as hard metrics, as lagging indicator style metrics that then are going to drive your business. We call this sort of mirroring customer lifetime value to employee lifetime value. So if customer lifetime value is built on things like customer satisfaction, it's built on things like being able to increase the size of a relationship. It's being focused on things like being able to decrease the amount of time and effort it takes to bring a customer in. All of that gets in part of the equation of customer lifetime value. We think the same thing is true for employee lifetime value. Yeah. So how easily and efficiently are you attracting the right talent? How quickly are you getting them up the curve to productivity? Yep. How long and how much are you developing them in their career that they want to stick around? And so that lifetime gets longer, right, in terms of a horizontal scale. So I think what we're talking about is basically kind of the same type of conversation you would have for customer lifetime value, but just swap out the stakeholder and think about it as employees, have the same types of conversations. And then you can start to frame your investments in sort of that lifetime value. Like this investment for us is really, really focused on driving additional productivity of this particular workforce. And we're going to see that. We're going to be able to measure that. Yep. Right. Same thing. This particular investment we're making is going to be able to help people see their career. They're going to stick around longer. Yep. So we're going to see that actual employee lifetime grow.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these things, as we talked about retention, internal mobility, these are all things that are going to be drivers, what we consider the golden metric of L&D, which is employee lifetime value.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I think maybe what I'm hearing is as we have more and more of a seat at the table, we have more of a responsibility to really highlight and clarify, the most desirable outcomes of learning and development. And yes, satisfaction is great. It really helps us understand how learners are stepping in, some of their feedback and reactions, how we can improve the learning experience. But when we're tying our L&D efforts to business outcomes, we've got to come with metrics that matter. And I think one of the things that I think is really cool, particularly about the LinkedIn Learning Report, is they use this learning culture index, which is a combination of a few of the key ingredients and even metrics that you spoke to: retention, internal mobility, promotion to management. These are all metrics that not only C-suite, but our employees are extremely interested in. And the data suggests that the more that we drive a learning culture, the rate of retention and internal mobility and promotions go up almost threefold. So when you start to tie like something as traditionally soft as are we building a good learning culture, to something as clear and objective as it's given us a 57% increase in our ability to retain our employees, like we will maintain our seat at the table and have even more of a voice. One of the things that I always suggest and we like to encourage our clients to think about is developing metrics that are unique and real for your organization. So we spend so much time trying to kind of crack the measurement nut, right? And we use traditional models such as Kirkpatrick and Addy and others out there. But sit with your leaders, find out what's important to them, and work with your operations teams to put together dashboards that really are starting to highlight the metrics that you're after. And things like retention, things like promotion, things like mobility. These are great metrics to focus on. And it is better to put forward something that maybe is a little rough and a little soft and prototype in nature than it is to just rest your laurels on satisfaction data. So start the discussion.
Yeah. And obviously simple to say, hard to put in practice. But I think if we could almost, TLDR, too long, don't read that. It's just creating a strategy on your people side of your business that mirrors the business side of strategy. So you talk with your business leaders and say, what are the things that you need people to do to drive these metrics for you? We link that to what we're actually doing in the world of L&D. And then we also have supplementing output-oriented metrics that then show whether it's just related to that the business side, but also on the people side. So I think it's just kind of mirroring the people side and the business side of your strategy.
Love that. I want to go back to leadership development and career development. This was such a focus of the 2024 Workplace Learning Report, and I love that it is in focus. And so we're starting to ask questions around what are the best practices for career development and leadership development. We know that good programming is something that you can start with and you can really focus on, but there's so much more in supporting our folks being able to grow and develop their careers, advance and get promoted to the next level. One of the things that was very clear in this year's report, and the report is over 1,600 L&D and HR professionals and over 1,000 learners, they are all saying that one size fits all, kind of off the shelf, large scale programming is out of style and frankly ineffective. I think the report suggests that only 5% of large scale one size fits all program actually get to the point where we're able to prove the effectiveness of the program. So if these large scale programs are not working, our learners are really asking for a much more diverse mix of tools and environments for them to step into, kind of the jungle gym approach that you talked about. So Griff, let's talk about some best practices for how we design and create career development.
Ooh, how long do we have?
Well, we do have an over-under on our team in terms of how long this episode is going to run.
Well, I think a couple, maybe just a through line that I think you shared there and some of those insights I think is really important is like career development generally for employees. A big driver of that is going to be their relationship with their direct leader. So I think even as you look at the list of key practices that the LinkedIn Learning Report shared in terms of what L&D professionals are saying are things they're investing in for career development. That first one being leadership development programs. Obviously, that's going to help you build great leaders who then want to stick around to be part of the organization. Yep. But then also they need to be the people who are helping people build careers. So you have that great first level leader as you join the organization who truly is both looking out for, back to what we talked about at the very beginning, your short-term performance and your long-term aspirations and where you want to take your career. So I think a lot of that obviously is naturally true. Back to your point about sort of one size fits all, two insights I have here. One, maybe like run counterintuitive.
Sure.
And I had to go a little contradictory at some point. One is that I don't necessarily know if I agree that large scale or this idea of large experiences or scaled experiences can't be effective. I think you have to look at what they look like. If you have a large scale experience that is really focused on application and social learning and a chance for people to learn from their peers and maybe from their managers and do a lot of things back on the job and reinforce and things like we call them experiments, you might call them, actions to take back. I don't necessarily know if that's out of style. I think it's just what happens a lot of times is when you get to these large scales, people get a little nervous about putting too much of the learning in people's hands. And therefore it gets a little kind of lecture based or it gets a little standardized. Whereas what we know to be true about learning experiences is like, it's got to be driven by the learner to actually take something away. Yeah. So maybe just a deposit that I don't think that scaled experience is out. Maybe just continuing to ensure that you're bringing great design principles to your scale. Maybe related to that though, when we think about giving people the chance to become better leaders, to build better careers, et cetera, I think L&D can continue to do a great job of trying to stitch together all the different ways that people learn, not just in terms of different modalities, like we might talk about, like workshops versus online courses, et cetera. But thinking about that age-old 70-20-10 split, right? Like we're going to do a lot of our learning back on the job. We're going to do a lot of our learning maybe in the classroom. And we're going to do a lot of our learning talking with people like mentors, peers, et cetera. L&D should be having a strategy across all of those buckets that allows people, again, to take agency over career. And taking agency over career and having great support from a great leader.
Yeah, I love that. We, over the course of the last few years, we've been so thrilled to bring our learning and leadership accelerator to our clients. And this is our leadership development platform that is made of, really great content and subject matter expertise, but it folds in so many of these unique modalities, platforms, and ways that people learn that as you zoom out from this accelerator offering, what you see is that the content becomes almost just this like kind of small speck in the entire learning experience. And the rest of the way, and this is what we have so much fun doing, is designing opportunities for folks to get with their frontline manager and have those discussions, apply their learning to a specific project that they're bringing to the organization. So they've got real world buy-in to the way they're learning, pairing small groups of learners together in peer cohorts to ensure that the learning is becoming personalized at the local level without a sage on stage in front of them. These are all things that are made of so many of the learning experiences that we offer here at Thoughtium. And we love this challenge of the content is not king. It is outcomes are all about the experience and the experiences that you're weaving together for your learners. So
can I add to that really quickly? Please, because I think one of the things that we've seen with our clients, the folks who you might say like get it, I think what they're also recognizing is not losing sight of putting into your strategy, sometimes like helping people learn to learn again. And you think about when we're kids, right? Like we have so much fun learning new things. And generally it's not in the lens of proficiency of expertise.
Right.
And I think it's I'm not saying we don't want to learn to become experts in things, but like when's the last time everyone who's listening into this had a chance just to learn something that wasn't even something that they had to then directly apply to their job the next day? Like there's so much power. A learning culture to me is you can have things that you have people show up to experiences and it might not be directly in their line of sight of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And yet they're there because they want to learn. Like, isn't that just an intoxicating idea to have a place where people who see themselves as like continuously improving people at all times and they can always learn something new?
Well, a very toxic idea to me is organizations that believe that the learning experience should be limited to inline skills and capabilities. Because the truth of the matter is, in this day and age, if your folks are not sparking that learning creativity within your organization, they're doing it personally outside of the walls. And one of our biggest charges is to kind of blur the lines between the way that we learn out in the open marketplace. YouTube and LinkedIn Learning and Udemy, everybody is building their skills somehow. and the way that we are traditionally forced to learn within organizations, which is make sure that it's within the lines of your specific role. So I love that charge of kind of blurring the lines and sparking creativity in and outside of your vocational role. Okay, we are going to round out this analysis, this conversation around the 2024 Workplace Learning Report from LinkedIn by focusing a little bit more inward on how we are growing and developing as L&D and HR professionals. What we appreciate about this report is that there's always a section about those skills and capabilities that we really need to be focused on as L&D professionals to stay sharp and ahead of all of these trends. And this year it was quite interesting as we continue to see a little bit of this swing back to what we call these human-centric power skills. We're realizing that L&D professionals, those of us who have been designing for a virtual first world over the last 4 years, are now really excited about getting back into those interpersonal skills that make us great facilitators and designers of learning experiences. So how did that land on you, Grift, when I think it was the top 3 of the 4 skills that help L&D succeed are in this kind of interpersonal presentation skills, how to connect with people realm?
Yeah, well, you know what? It kind of made me feel a little embarrassed because I've been saying all these things out in the marketplace, thinking I was so novelty and unique, and apparently everyone thinks the same thing.
By the
so,
data, 1,600 of your peers.
Yeah, well, maybe it hurts my personal pride of being so unique. I think it's really great to see people really seeing the inherent focus. Again, goes back to our conversation about technology. Like what we know to be true is that we're going to have to become better and better communicators, better listeners, better speakers. All of those things, better question askers, all of these things, right? And so I think that's true just in everything, not just in L&D, but particularly as we think about whether it's leading experiences or, launching off new initiatives within organizations as part of L&D. Like these things are going to be that much more important, particularly as, again, your administrative burden gets lower and lower. I think, we talk about the concept. A lot of these things will relate into what we call situational intelligence, right? So interpersonal skills, how well are you able to become empathetic with your learners, with your business partners? Empathetic, not from maybe people's soft and squishy view. Empathetic from like, I can understand where you're trying to go and I want to help you get there. There's so much power in that. People think empathy is just the soft skill. It's all about sensitivity. It's literally the most action-oriented skill you could potentially have. Become empathetic. That's like the number one foundational base of your interpersonal skills. I think also we talk about agility, right? Like being able to move and shift on the fly with new data. You're going to have AI tools that allow you to see how things are going. You get some of these new metrics. Hey, this is working. This is not working. How might you shift and apply different strategies based on that? And then influence. We think about presentation, problem solving. We have to be thinking about with that empathy, with that agility in mind. How do we become influential? How do we become inspirational? How do we get people excited again to be part of the learning culture? Like I think we're excited about. We love storytelling as like one of the. I can't remember the last time we pitched an experience to a client that didn't include some lens of storytelling. Only because again, as we talk about this world that continues to shift, like if you're not a good storyteller, no one's going to listen. And what we need to know is we have to be very, very good at communicating to be able to be that much more adept in the future. A
little bit of like, I guess, real world support of that argument for these like superhuman skills, if you will. The beginning of 2020, middle of 2020, we created an offering, a learning experience by the name of situational intelligence, and it's made of building these new required skills in agility, influence, and resilience. It was first really focused on supporting field sales teams really express these skills in a world where they might walk into an office virtually or in person, and the business could have totally shifted or changed, or there could have been a real personal issue that they needed to deal with face to face. And there was so much excitement around building some of these skills. What we're seeing now here 3-4 years later are that those same client organizations want to bring this situational intelligence to the entire organization. Because it's not just the sales folks and the customer facing folks that need these skills to be able to connect much more deeply. We've got to be doing it within our own walls. And so we've been thrilled to bring situational intelligence to organizations, both field facing and internal as well too.
I think the big shift we've made in that offering over the life of it, which I think has been a really impactful one, has been calling out empathy as its own skill.
Yes.
And I think that is that's not only been very well received by clients, but again, as we think about this like foundational approach to being able to be situational intelligent, which is in our mind being able to adapt to individual and situation in a really effective manner, you're going to have that baseline of empathy, and everyone in the organization needs it. So why would L&D not?
Totally. Couldn't agree more. Don't sleep on the soft skills. All right. We are going to wrap up this year's 2024 Workplace Learning Report review. First and foremost, we want to thank everybody who's tuned in today. We know that we get to send this content out to a handful of our clients and community, so we thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you were inspired or learned a little bit about your role as an L&D or HR professional, or even just as a leader within an organization. We're thrilled to bring you this perspective every year. To round us out, Grift, if you could explain, the future or the state of learning in one word, how would you explain it?
You're really putting my storytelling skills on display. Here I am talking about like storytelling matters so much, and I'm going to totally butcher this one word. Can I do two?
Yeah.
Promisingly provocative.
Ooh, the state of learning today is promisingly provocative. I love that. I would say the state of learning today is agile. We are expected and get the opportunity to move in every direction within organizations, and we have the opportunity to influence in so many different levels of altitude, and that really, really excites me. So, Grift, thank you so much for your practitionership, your leadership, and for being with us today. We want to thank everybody who tuned in as part of this episode 183 of Navigating Now. We will see you next week. Every week we go live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. You can also catch all of our episodes at thoughtteam.com/live. Hope you all have a good rest of the day and a great weekend.
Never stop